Okay, we are officially ready to start. Enjoy.
Yes. So hello, everyone. Thank you, Alexander, for this great introduction. This is my first time to host online Meetup, but not the first time to host the Meetup or an event like this. And I choose the topic that is close to my heart, which is like how to combine or should we combine design thinking and Agile. Since I've been into design thinking for longer than working as a Scrum Master. So I've been working as Scrum Master for 3 years now. And what I always had in mind is, where is the sweet spot between design thinking and Agile? How can I connect the two? And how can I actually use it in my everyday job, as I mostly work with teams, helping them develop different solutions, but I don't really have opportunity to work on the product discovery part of the whole process. As Alexander said, I love climbing, but I will tell you more about it later. This session I envision to be interactive, so I would like to discuss, I will share my experience, share my point of view, but also I would like to answer all the questions that you might have. And maybe if you don't believe in design,
Jovana, you are muted.
okay, and now? Okay, I don't know how that happened.
Oh,
okay,
never mind.
good. Thank you. So any question that you might have like during the session, because I will be interactive and to bring the value to you. So first thing, I hear myself echoing.
I fixed it, don't worry.
Okay, so I shared a link to the Miro board. I would like to just help me out with figuring out who do we have on this call. So as I said, my name is Jovana. I'm based in Belgrade. I work primarily as a Scrum Master, but also facilitate different workshops. And just put your names. I will share the screen to show you where to go. But I hope it's nothing difficult to you. Just a second. Okay, let me. Okay, good. So bringing everyone to me.
Jovana, could you please, I'm sorry, could you please share the link of the Miro board one more time in chat?
The ones who joined later don't have the access. Okay, cool. So just put your name, where you're based, and what you do for life. Okay, so product designer, Agile coach, owner of digital marketing agency. Don't be shy. Okay, UX, UI designer. So I guess you're familiar with design thinking, maybe even more than myself. Entrepreneur, Scrum Master. Okay, so how many of you, maybe you can just, I think, can you raise your hand in using Zoom? Because I'm so used to Microsoft Teams, I totally forgot if you can raise your hand here. Yes, you can. Okay, so the ones who had the opportunity to work on, I don't know, some projects using design thinking or participated in any kind of training on design thinking, just raise your hand. Okay, cool. Not too many of you, though. Okay. So then I will just start with short introduction, I guess. As I said, my name is Jovana, but you can call me Lola, and all of my colleagues call me Lola. I'm a cautious adventurer. Why? And this is related to climbing, because I love adrenaline and I love to try new things, but also I'm afraid of taking too many risks or big risks. What happened to me a year ago is that while I was climbing, just the training session, like usual Friday training session, I managed to break my upper arm bone. And now I have this big, I think you can see, I have a big scar. The recovery took 6 months, but almost a year to get fully recovered. So that's why I say, always say, I'm cautious adventurer. And this is something that I think also applies in how I do my job as Scrum Master, as a workshop facilitator. So I always like to add something different, something new, but also, stay safe if I can. Also, I love to say for myself that I'm a creative soul. And this is something that you can see when I'm working with different teams, coming up with different concepts of the workshop. And this is where I use that kind of design thinking mindset. And unconventional Scrum Master, I don't like to do things by the book. And I always try to, find a different way, find a different solution to problems in ways I help my teams. I always try to do it in a different ways and not just to follow, I don't know, some rules that we have written. My first date with design thinking was in 2016. I was involved in one project organized by Telenor, which is telecommunication, big telecommunication company known in the Nordics, Asia, and also here in the Balkans region. They're not operating here anymore, but they were really big player in the market, and the Nobel Peace Center. So it was a project that lasted 9 months. And the first initial meeting that we had, so there were people from all around the world, usually young professionals with different backgrounds, because their goal was to make cross-functional teams, but also coming from different cultures. And we were working on social innovation projects. So our first meeting was in Oslo, and we were given one task, education for young refugees. I have no idea how, anything about the refugees. I didn't know any refugee at that moment, but this was something that was hot topic in 2016 because of the whole migrant crisis. And this was important for them. So how can we help young refugees coming from different countries to moving to Europe, stay on the track with their education? And this is when we were introduced to design thinking and service design. So creative approach to solving problems. In this case, it was a social problem. As I said, I knew nothing about refugees. How can I come up with any solution if I have no idea how they're, what are their needs, what are the problems? Only thing I could do is to assume. And especially when you have a team of people, you have one guy from India, one girl from Sweden, I was coming from Serbia, then you have a girl from Myanmar. We all had different perspectives, different understanding of what the refugees are facing with, what are their problems, and thinking about the solution was the next step. So first we had to understand what do they need help with. Design thinking approach was perfect in this case because that first step, when you're in chaotic environment, you know nothing about your potential users. In this case, we had to make a digital solution. So we were looking at them as our users or customers. So we knew nothing about them. And first thing we need to do, even though we had a team we had all the, how to say, all the knowledge to build a digital solution, but we had no idea what to build, what were the needs. And before that, even like jumping into project, we needed to do a research. So we needed to go step back. We needed to empathize with the users. We need to talk with the refugees. We need to talk with the experts to truly understand their background, what they're facing with. And then we could think about the potential solutions and start the execution, for which we had 9 months. So as I said, this was the perfect methodology for this context where we knew nothing about the users, and we truly needed to, put aside a month or two to do a thorough research. And as I said, to talk. So the information we could find on the internet wasn't enough. Truly understanding their problems was possible only by talking with them. And this is when I understood like the true power of using this approach, starting with the user, understanding the needs, and then jumping into ideating and crafting the solution, potential solution that we would like to launch, ship one day. Here you can see me explaining the idea to my teammate, and this was really intense process. I will walk you through how the design thinking process actually look like. But here you can see like the whole journey. So we had to spend a lot of time understanding the problem. Then starting ideation was maybe a couple of months later, and the project itself, like the execution, was only like maybe two months before we pitched the solution, and we received some funds. Unfortunately, we didn't manage to like fully execute it and launch the solution, but we had a proof of concept. And I think this is something that made that project successful at the end, even though we didn't manage to reach the end point. And here also you can see, so talking with users, testing the solution with the users. So I went to the refugee camp here in Serbia, organized the workshop, talked with them, showed our idea, and then validated the concept. So we followed the design thinking approach like fully from the beginning to the end. Also, another project that is very close to my heart is the one that I worked with my colleague from Grow It, Denise. And here you can see just like a part of our process, so a lot of sticky notes. And here you can see one lady. Her name is Anna, and her son is a child with developmental disabilities. I also have this brother with disabilities. And what we wanted to do with this project is to craft the solution for the parents and families who are raising children with disabilities in Serbia. And this is where I truly understood the power of talking with people and kind of not starting from assumptions, even though I perceived myself as, not to say expert, but someone who lives with a child with disability. And I thought like, yeah, I know it all. I know all the problems the parents and the families are facing with, because that's my reality, because I live with it every day. So I wanted to skip that part, like talking with families, because I thought, yeah, let's just start crafting the solution, because I already like know what are the problems, what we are solving and how to solve it. But my colleague Denise was like, no, let's follow the process from the beginning to the end. Let's start with the interviews. Let's talk with other parents and other families and see what they think are the biggest problems and challenges they're facing. What I understood at the end of the interviews is that my assumptions were totally wrong, and that my family was not a good example, and the way we live with this, how to say, the challenge, because we were only like maybe 1 or 2% of the families in Serbia who accepted this. We have a child with disability in our family, and this is how we live. Let's try to, make the best out of it. But talking with other parents, I understood that the situation in Serbia, like over 90% families had totally different challenges. And that number one challenge was accepting the fact that their child is different. And I didn't have that in mind because I was like, we accepted this in his first year, and then we continue living in totally different way that other families were living. And approximately it takes around 5 years for parents to accept they have a child with disability, like totally accept. And this was eye-opening for me. So this is where I truly understood the importance and the power of design thinking, or like the first phase of first stage of design thinking, where you actually go into the field, you talk with people, you listen to people, you empathize with them, and you start like with, how to say, like blank space. So leave all your assumptions behind and truly like start from, beginner's mind. So these are just some of the projects that I was involved in, and these two are related to social innovation. As you can see, like refugee children, in this case, I knew nothing about them. So I had to do the research. I had to talk with them in order to understand what I'm doing. And in second case, I assumed that I'm the expert. I know everything. I can, start the execution. I can form my Scrum team and start working on on executing the solution that I already had in mind. But I was wrong. So going like step back and starting from scratch truly helped me to come up with even better solution, or like the solution that would fit 90% of family's needs, not only the needs of my family. Any similar experiences? Any different experiences? Did it happen that you had a cool solution in your mind, like the greatest idea, but you didn't really understand the users, so you realized that maybe in the middle of the process? Nothing. Okay. Then let's move to definition of design thinking. So I love to call it a human-centered mindset for problem solving. And this is just like something that is like the definition that is closest to my heart. But if we want to use a definition like that's kind of acceptable, and it's more maybe better defined, like from the book, we say that design thinking is actually human-centered approach to problem solving. In its focus is the user, their needs. And then once you understand the needs, you can develop innovative solutions that meet the needs. The agency, I bet like those of you who already know something about design thinking are familiar with, is IDEO. So IDEO is agency that has, I would say, they didn't come up with design thinking approach, but they did popularize this approach and actually brought it from the design to the business environment. And as they say, design thinking is a human-centered approach to innovation that uses the toolkits from designers to integrate the needs of people, but also they're not talking only about, what the people need. They also take into consideration the technology, so what is possible, and also what makes sense for the business. So here we have not only desirability. So when I'm talking about the interviews with the users, empathizing with the users, I talk about desirability part of the project. But they also involve the other two, which is feasibility and viability, which is very important, because if you just craft the solution that meets the needs of the people, but you don't really have that business perspective, and you don't have that perspective of, can I build this? Okay, this is cool. This solves all the problems, but I don't really have resources to do this. Those projects usually end up in drawers, underneath someone's desks, and they never get launched, and they never see the light of, and they never get like fully executed. So this is why it's important to take into account all the three aspects. And that's when we say, okay, if it's desirable, if it's viable and feasible, that's the innovation sweet spot. And that's something that, like, my project or my idea is validated, I can start working on it, and I should invest resources. This makes sense from all the different perspectives. There is also a sustainability moment. So we talk a lot about sustainability. Okay, not maybe we in the region, in the Balkans region, because our environment, like business environment, is not mature yet in that matter that we also take into account the sustainability. But in the Nordics, this is very important. So they're totally focusing, they mastered these three, but they're now focusing on adding the sustainability and actually integrating sustainability aspect into everything they do. So ecology, like green economy, this is very, very important, but I don't think in the Balkans we're there yet. We just recently started, incorporating this design thinking mindset in innovation projects. And I think it will take some time to get to the level of maturity that the Nordics are currently. Okay. Any questions so far? I believe that those of you who are product managers, or maybe the UX designer that we have on the call, that you're probably familiar with this. Okay. So 5 stages of design thinking. I will just walk you through this because I see that majority of you are not familiar, or at least you didn't raise your hands. As I said, very important stage of design thinking. Why we are calling these stages, not the phases, because this is not a linear process. And you'll see you can jump from empathize to, when you define, ideate, and then you can go back. You can go back and forth until you're satisfied with your result. Empathize is something that you're starting with this stage no matter what. As I said, I wanted to skip it in my project, but going through the empathize stage helped me to actually deliver better solution at the end. So if you're using design thinking approach, we start with empathizing with the users. What we want to do here is to truly understand their needs, their drivers, their behavior, the problems, challenges they're facing, the opportunities. And this is where we usually go out in the field, observe the users, talk with the users. We can also do the survey. So there are different techniques and different tools that you can use in order to empathize with the user and understand their needs. I prefer one-on-one interviews. I think they give you the most insightful answers. They take the most time. They take the most energy. It's the most difficult part to find the right people to actually talk with. So like the relevant people, relevant users for your project. But from my experience, it gives the most insightful answers. And by listening to their stories, about their experiences, you can find something that you never thought about. But as I said, this can be a survey, this can be a desktop research. So you go and see what's out there on the internet about the users that you want to focus on. You can observe the users. So this is something that usually, I guess you heard when the actors are preparing for their roles in big movies, sometimes they spend a couple of days, weeks, months living as the role they're about to play. So if you're about to play, I don't know, the guy who lives on the streets, in order for an actor to truly understand how it is to live on the streets and to be able to, give his best performance in the movie, he would spend a couple of weeks living on the streets. And then this would be something that you can also use as a method to empathize with your users. Maybe this is too extreme, but it's also a very good way to, understand the user. Or you can go live with a family, like refugee family, spend a couple of days, couple of weeks, and then you'll get to truly understand what they're facing with. After you understand the needs of the users, their behaviors, their drivers, what motivates them, then you can sit down and kind of try to define what's the problem that you want to solve, why is it important. There are probably many problems, many challenges, but here you prioritize and you kind of pick and choose, you define what is the challenge that you would like to work on. Once you do that, then you go into the brainstorming, ideation phase, you think divergently, you kind of, what you want is to wake up your inner creative, and everyone is creative, so don't let this maybe trick you. And you spend some time on actually crafting, like coming up with different ideas for the potential solution to the problem that you defined in the second stage. What's very important for design thinking, usually people think that design thinking ends here. So after you went through the ideation process, you came up with some ideas, and then that's when it stops. This is not the case, and a very important part of design thinking, if you do it the right way, is the prototyping and testing. And we can also talk about, this is also like a lean approach. But in lean, we talk about MVP, and it has to be like functional. But here we're talking about making low fidelity prototypes. So the prototypes that are good enough so we can test some hypotheses that we have. So we can test if our idea is good. We can talk with users, we can show them maybe, the paper prototype. It doesn't have to be anything fancy, and it shouldn't be, functioning. This can be the mock-up, as I said, paper prototype. So whatever that's just good enough for you to show to the user, test your assumptions, validate if your idea is the right one, and then you can kind of go into the second the phase of the project, and you can actually start executing the project, planning the project, and this is how you kind of de-risk possibility that you're on the wrong track. If you realize here in the testing that your solution maybe doesn't meet the needs of the user, or they have different expectations, then you can go back to the empathize stage, and then you can do more research if it's needed. So you can jump, as I said, from one stage to the other, and do not look at design thinking approach as something that's linear, because it's never linear and it can get messy. But if you know what is the point, like what you're using design thinking for, and that's actually finding the right problem to solve and ideating the potential solution to that problem, that then you can, test further, make an MVP, start, like form your Scrum team, and actually start the development. So here we're in the problem space. We want to make sure that we know the right problem that we're solving, and also we have some idea what the solution can be. And then we can move to more structured project management. So here we want to know, are we solving the right problem? And we're focusing on the right user need, taking into consideration that desirability is important, but also we ask ourselves questions. Is the solution viable? Is it feasible? If we say yes to all the three aspects, then this makes sense to further develop MVP, form the Scrum team, and start developing something that will actually see the light of the day and hopefully be successful and meet the expectations and the needs of our user. So hopefully this is, I think it shouldn't be too complicated, but if you have any questions for any of the phases, now it's time to shoot, because later we're going to talk about, I mean, I want for all of us to come up with a conclusion if design thinking and Agile are made for each other. So I will give you my perspective, but I think it's important that you understand this. So we can come up with conclusion as a team today at the end of the meetup. So any question, any comments, anything that you would like to say? Come on.
Okay, Jovana, maybe I have one question.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, it's not specifically related to the process, but I'm interested in, at the previous slides, you mentioned that you contact the potential users on Facebook. So I'm just interested, how did you approach them? Actually, how that went in general? How did you approach them? What information did you require for them? And what was like the percentage of response rate in terms of did you find the right users?
Yeah, finding the right users is tricky, but there are different ways. So for the refugees, I went to the asylum and I talked with people there who work there. And that was because this was a very sensitive group of people and very sensitive topic. So I needed kind of proof that I'm not going to use any information that they share for kind of purposes that are not like with bad intentions, so to say. So in this case, I needed the proof from the Telenor, from Nobel Peace Center, in order to reach, you know, to get into the asylum and actually talk with those kids. And especially this was the refugee kids. So this was very kind of tricky, but still I managed to do it. So that's where you need someone to kind of back up. So maybe that's your company, or I don't know, the agency that you're working with. So you need someone to kind of give them the proof, or maybe the sign contract with them, like NDA or something, that you're not going to misuse the information that they share. But for other groups, so for example, the parents with children with disabilities, my colleague and myself approached a couple of people that we already knew, but also we approached some that we didn't get a chance to meet before. And if you explain what's the purpose of the interview, what you want to achieve, so just like the basic, how to say, basic background of the project that you're working on, and also how you're going to do the follow-up, because people usually expect if you spend 1 hour or 2 hours talking with them and they share their personal experiences and stories, they expect some follow-up. They expect for you to, you know, follow up on the project progress, or maybe to give something in return. So they would usually be open to talk, but also depending on the group of people you wanted to talk with, you needed to find something, you know, to give, how to say, like give back. So for some people, updating on the project progress was enough, and that was perfect. But some people were expecting a bit more. So it will be up to you to identify what drives the people that you need to talk with, and kind of, give them something in return. Sometimes it's just as simple as I say, update them on how the project is going, what you're planning to do with the insights that you gather. I think that's very important. And if you're open and transparent, I don't think that people will have problems with, sharing their experiences if they see the value and how they're contributing to something bigger, so to say. But just like being transparent and, not promising something that you cannot give to them. So never promise the solution, oh yeah, we're going to launch this solution for you, because in this phase, you don't know. You're exploring, you're doing a research, and just don't overpromise. And our response rate was good. I don't know exact number, but like we usually had that first kind of initial one-on-one meeting, like 10-15 minutes explaining, and it takes time. But I think like out of 10 people, maybe just 2 of them didn't want to talk further. But the other 8 were willing to. I think that was like the number of people that we managed to do interviews with. So just be open, transparent, like why you need the insights from them, how they're going to contribute to your project, and what you can kind of give in return, so to say, but never overpromise that you're going to, create the crazy solution that will be on the market in, I don't know, in 2 months. If you cannot, you cannot say that at this point when you're just doing the research. So that would be from my experience. But people are very open, and also LinkedIn is a great way to connect with people for these purposes. But as I said, it will depend on the user group and their drivers. The sooner you identify what drives the people, what would motivate them to talk to you, it's better. Like the sooner the better, and you will have the bigger, greater response rate if you manage to do that right, like identify those things and pick wisely.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Okay. And these are some of the situations like that are good for considering using design thinking approach, because it's not for every context. If you know the needs of the users, you kind of validated your assumptions. And if you already have tested your potential idea, you can start the execution. But in cases when you're not sure, maybe you want to go launch your existing solution to the new market, but you don't really know how the users will behave in that market, you need to kind of, go step back and do some research. Then that's one good example when you can use design thinking. So entering new market, if you're tapping into new industry, if you want to add some new features that you have never built before, if you want to improve the existing, but maybe, also include some other kind of other users that you don't have any previous experience with. If you want to create something new, if you're creating something from scratch, it's always good to do a research. It doesn't have to be maybe, thorough research, but please allocate some time for the empathize phase, because you never know what can come out of it. This is very tricky. If you're creating something new and you don't have experience, you don't have the knowledge, it's natural to start with the research. But if you consider yourself an expert, as I consider myself to be expert, it's so easy to, just skip all of these steps. But allocating some time to empathize phase will always bring you value. And trust me, I would create totally wrong wrong thing if I didn't do this. And also when people, I mean, this is something that happens often. Startups. It usually starts with, oh, I have this cool idea, let's start building it. I have, my friends developers around me. We can, start the execution immediately. And then they test with their friends and with their neighbors, but they're not really the potential users of the product they're building. And this happens too often. So for me, it's the most difficult. It's to work on projects with solely developers who have that startup mindset, because they usually skip the empathize phase. They're like, I have this cool idea. I don't want to validate the idea. I just want to start building it, and then I will figure out how to, get the users. And this happened at least twice. Once in Norway, and once it was here, some small startup. But it's so hard. Even if you don't have a lot of time, you always have time for 4 or 5 interviews, and that will bring a lot of value to your project. So my advice would be allocate some time to empathize phase, even if you think you know it all, because there's always something new, and the expectations change so quickly, especially in the situations like we had pandemic, and then everyone's expectations have changed. And also when we work with banks, so they're very rigid, like banking systems, they don't realize that their competitors are not only other traditional banks. Their competitors are fintech, Spotify, Uber. So their competitors are all around. They come from different industries. Why? Because they are the ones who set the expectations of the customer, especially for the customer experience. So even like banking sector, insurance, who else do we have? Pharma industry. They have to take design thinking approach and kind of look outside of the box, think outside of the box if they want to stay relevant. So that's something that I see as a Scrum Master a lot. And here you also have some cool examples of design thinking. So you will have the link. You can bookmark this link and you can later go through these examples. But this is something that's probably you're familiar with, and you heard hundreds of times as Agile people, that Henry Ford, what he said, that if I asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses. So people usually have no idea what they want, even when they think they do. So that's why I always say, go talk with people, listen, like actively have that active listening mode on, and you will find out a lot of things. You will uncover a lot of needs and wants that your users are probably not even able to articulate, and that are not even maybe know the answer. If you ask them, hey, do you want this or that? You will get some answer, but the real answer lies in talking with them and actually, finding, understanding what's left unsaid, so to say, in those conversations. Okay, that was design thinking, but very briefly. I don't want to go into definition of Agile, because you're here for a reason and you all have the Agile background. But just to make a difference, so while when we talk about design thinking, we're talking about the problem space, understanding the needs, finding the right problem, and then coming up with a solution to that problem. In Agile, we're focused on solving the problem by building the solution right. So we're focusing on delivering working software or products in short iterations, And also what's important that you saw we have prototyping, we have testing phase in design thinking as well. But there we're validating the problem and idea. We're not validating something that we're already developing and building, but that's like one step behind. When we're validating the concept, we're validating something that's in the stage that you cannot start executing yet. And it's very important that, as I said, these prototypes in design thinking, it's a low fidelity, it's not working like software. It's just like a paper prototype or something that you can show to your customer and receive feedback on and validate your idea and your assumption, like hypothesis about the problem that you want to solve. In Agile, we're talking about developing the working software or working product, whatever that product is. And here we're talking about the execution part. While here we're talking more about the problem space, the research, and something that is, comes before Agile, but not always. Only in cases when we need the research and we don't know what we're building, so we want to discover and also the users and their problems. So design thinking, we want to validate the problem and need of the user. Agile, we're building kind of the right thing. We can also put lean somewhere in between, and lean would be thinking about MVP and going, it's like a step in between design thinking and Agile. We have the prototyping and testing in all three. And it's very important that you do not forget that design thinking process takes into consideration like all five, because as I said, people usually think, oh no, you're just being creative, you're coming up with some crazy ideas, but you never actually validate, test them, or realize those projects. And now if we had to, now that we know what makes design thinking approach, and I don't want to talk about Agile, I will ask you to add something to this list. If we look at them as Mrs. Design Thinking and Thinker and Mr. Agile, and what we want to conclude in this meetup is, are they made for each other? Should they date? How should that relationship look like? I'm asking you to help me out with adding more personal traits to these two. So for Mrs. Design Thinker, I would say that she's empathetic. She cares about people. She truly tries to understand people. She's also creative. We said design thinking is a creative approach to problem solving. She's active listener. She's also curious because she's doing all the research. While Agile, Mr. Agile is transparent, flexible, very pragmatic, and goal-oriented. Anything that you would like to add? Anything that comes to your mind?
Ne može.
Nikola, ja se izvinjavam, samo ako možeš mutiraj se. Okay, that was kindly asked to Nikola to mute himself. He probably didn't know that. Okay, Jovana, go ahead.
No worries. Yeah, so design thinker. Empathetic, creative, active listener, curious. What else would you add? Anything? Okay, I see someone is writing. Cool. Nice. Okay, what else do we have? Come on, shouldn't be that difficult. Okay, we have something in the chat. Hard one. No, I came up with 4 traits. You can come up with something more, I'm sure. Problem solver, yes, cool. See how I can make this bigger. Okay, Agile, Mr. Agile. This is easier. Should be. Okay, cool, precise. I'll give you a minute or two to silently brainstorm. Okay, organized, yes. Would you say that Mrs. Design Thinker might seem a bit chaotic if we take a look at this? Or no? I mean, you can always ask ChatGPT. I will show you. I asked ChatGPT what he or she says about potential relationship between these two. Jack Sparrow vibe, chaotic. Cool. And what would the ChatGPT say? So I had no idea what I would get as an answer, but I think this was a pretty good answer. So I asked if design thinking and agile methodologies were real people and wanted to date each other, would that relationship work? And as methodologies, design thinking and agile are complementary and can work well together. However, if we were to personify them and consider a romantic relationship, it's difficult to predict if they would be a good match or not, as it depends on their individual personalities and preferences. In some ways, design thinking and agile might make a good couple. Design thinking is focused on empathy, creativity, human-centeredness, could complement agile's emphasis on collaboration, adaptation, and results-driven approach. They both share a desire for continuous improvement and willingness to embrace change and experimentation. On the other hand, design thinking and agile have some fundamental differences that could make it challenging for them to date. Design thinking is a methodology that emphasizes exploration, experimentation, and creativity, while agile is focused on execution, speed, efficiency. These different priorities and approaches could lead to tension and conflicts. Ultimately, like any relationship, it would depend on how well design thinking and agile communicate, collaborate, and adapt to each other's needs and preferences. If they can find a way to balance their differences and work together towards a shared goal, their relationship could be successful. Well, I think I will start asking ChatGPT some questions for my dating life, because he gives he has a good point of view and hopefully good recommendations. But yes, so design thinking and agile are different but complementary methodologies. You don't always have to use design thinking in agile projects, but in most cases, some like taking, something out of it can truly help you, especially in the cases where you for example, are doing a project, you're sprinting, and then in one sprint, you have two different ideas and you have no idea which way to go. You can kind of, pause, not really pause, but devote the sprint to validating your ideas and using design thinking approach to pick and choose which way to go. Design thinking, as I said, I look at it as a mindset, and you can use a lot of good techniques from the Empathize stage and incorporate in how you actually, do the testing in Agile projects using Scrum, and especially for the product discovery. Product discovery is something that happens usually at the beginning of the project, but also that's something that's continuously happening throughout the project as well, but in different ways. And here, I think design thinking approach can be truly helpful to product owners to understand what brings the most value to the users, and then prioritize the backlog and actually decide on the product goals, but also the sprint goals with the team. So if you're starting the project from scratch, you're in chaotic environment, you don't know the market, don't know the users, don't know how to do things. So I'm referring to the Stacy metrics. You don't know what you're doing nor how you do it. This is when you should use design thinking like no doubt. But also, while doing the project itself, if you started the execution, you will sometimes reach the point where you need to, go back and maybe empathize with user again, especially because the expectations of the user are changing all the time. Design thinking approach is something that usually when I talk with Agile community, people don't really believe in this, but I think it's very important for product owner to do at least one project using design thinking, so starting from scratch, and build their design thinking muscles, because it can help a lot with defining the product vision, with prioritizing tasks, and everything they usually do in their everyday job. I had a situation with one project where I was a Scrum Master. There was a team. They wanted to kick off the project. And then I kind of sit down with product owner. Okay, so let's just, write down the product vision, and they like, who are your users and whatever. Turned out he had no idea what the product vision would be. He had no idea who the users were. He had two totally different groups of people. And then he wanted to kick off the project like on Monday, and we did this on Friday, like one session. I was like, yeah, he knows what we're doing. Let's just, write it down. We had to postpone the kickoff to do the product discovery, like a week or two. I don't remember now how long it took, but we needed to go a step back, go through design thinking approach, and truly, set things up before jumping into execution, which was something they were like, yeah, we have the team, let's start. So this is something that happens a lot when I work as external Scrum Master, that product owners don't talk to their users. They assume things that they don't validate. And also they don't know how to talk with their users, which is something that's maybe even worse. So me as Scrum Master, I always like to, somehow when working with product owners, go through, short design thinking introduction session, give them some tools for the empathizing phase, give them kind of toolbox for how to talk with users, how to discover the needs, and how to validate the ideas using this approach, which is lighter. As I said, when we say prototype, we talk about low fidelity prototypes, and this is something that product owners that I'm working with find very useful. And as I said, in the projects that I worked on as a project lead or team member, this truly helped me to make a better proposition, value proposition, product vision, and made my team's life easier when the execution would start. So I would say that design thinker and Mr. Agile are a great couple, but you need to kind of find a way to find a balance between the differences they have, but at the end of the day, they do have the same goal, which is to satisfy the needs of the user. They just do it in a bit different way and at different point of time. Any other thoughts, questions? We have, I think, 5 minutes left. Do you see that you could potentially include design thinking approach in some of your projects? Do you use it in the product discovery? Nope. Then start using it. Okay. No questions, nothing. Hopefully it was fun and you learned something new. If you ever want to talk about design thinking or, okay, what are the tools you give to product owners? Okay, so Alexander, can I somehow share this after the meeting, because I want to compile some of the links?
Of course you can share, and we are going to prepare it, and then we are going to send that to our participants via message through the community group. So
okay.
I suppose you can share
cool.
the link of the Miro board where you can arrange all those stuff. So
yes,
they can
and then I will just put the links there.
That's right.
Cool.
That's right.
Cool. Okay. Product redesign, how to approach in this situation. So I don't know what how big the redesign was planned. So maybe Nicola, you can just give me a more details. I know what was the scale of redesign. Was it like total redesign, or was it like minor changes?
It's easy to talk. So yeah, we are talking about the full redesign on the whole product.
Full.
So yes, so we have internal product, we have internal developers and internal team who is using it. And we was doing the whole redesign, like new functions. We have designer, but the thing that we didn't have the vision, the mission of the product before. And once we got design, then we start thinking regarding this. So I'm just looking.
Was it the same group of users?
Yes. So designer was doing research with this group. They talk a lot, but the thing is, we still are missing vision, mission, and goal of this. So we have it, but it's not, let's say, well described and defined. Do you need any more details? But I just want to know how to implement this design thinking when we have product and we would like to do redesign of it.
So you would test redesigned products after it was completed. Did you have any testing like before, or maybe just like the concept? Because this is when I think you can do like low fidelity prototype. If you don't want to risk to spend a lot of time, effort, and money on redesign that's costly, and you're not sure that if user would like it, and you would, it would solve their needs, meet the expectations, etc. So what I would recommend is first, having that product vision, if it has changed, and then validate, like make a low fidelity prototype of the redesign, like just show the concept to your group of users and test it before you start the redesign, because I think the whole redesign is probably costly and takes a lot of effort and money. And if you make a mistake, you cannot really, start it all over again. You have to start it all over again, probably. So I would recommend using approach in a sense that you have some low fidelity prototype of the redesigned product that you would test, validate if that's the right way to go with your users, then redefine product vision if needed. Maybe it's not needed to be redefined, but that's something that you will check with the users and also after the Empathize phase. And then I would start the redesign itself. This is just one way to de-risk going into wrong direction, so to say, but it will also depend on the designer's approach to the research part. So if you have a designer who is experienced, then they truly do this part and talk about the users before you start the execution of the whole redesign of the product, then I think you should not worry. But if you don't have the experience, do not skip this part, especially before starting a big redesign. I think that's too risky not to test something before.
Okay, thank you. One, let's say, sub question. When should we start with develop phase? So should we wait that the design be done, or should we, I don't have some part of design done, then we can start with develop phase, or should we just wait like to have the whole design, to have prototype?
I wouldn't wait. Like based on my experience, I mean, if you have already validated or know that something should work and should be developed, you don't have to, maybe you don't have to test the whole concept and like the idea. You can test only the most riskiest assumptions, but something that you're sure about, you can start developing. So it will depend on the context and also, taking into consideration the risk, the opportunity cost, and you have to do that. I mean, the product owner or whoever is leading the project should do that before making any decisions, but do it in agile manner, but try to de-risk what you find to be the riskiest that can, make project unsuccessful in the end. So it depends on the context. You don't have to test everything, but whatever you find to be risky and that you think could affect the project success at the end, I would definitely test before developing. But I think if you have already done this, there is something that you can start developing that's not risky. It has to be like that. But it will depend on product owners and designers' understanding of users, and if they know the users the best, then that should not be risky decision, and they should probably be fine with whatever they decide. But as I said, some product owners don't talk to their users, so take that into consideration, how knowledgeable the product owner and designer are. Not only knowledgeable, but like how much effort they put into truly talking and understanding the user.
Thanks.
Okay, any other question?
Yeah, I just have a question. What do you mean by saying risky?
Risky, anything that could, so have you heard about design sprints?
Yeah, of
that's
course.
Another topic. Yeah. Okay. But the idea is to validate any risky assumptions that you might have. So anything that you feel could affect the project, or you're not sure if you should invest in the further developing and executing the idea.
Okay, so in financial terms, right?
It is in financials, but also it can be in the desirability part. So if you have the assumption that you're not sure about. So you think that users would like something and they would, buy something at the end of the day, use your service, but you're not sure. And if your assumption is wrong, that can turn the project into something that's not successful and the wasted money, resources at the end. Then test that assumption before jumping into execution. So I was working on one blockchain project, like digital identity solution using blockchain. Our assumption was that people care about their digital identity and they would never, give their information in first click on the first page of the app that we wanted to develop. And this was in Norway. And it's very important to mention, in Norway, people's perception of their digital identity and how much they care about their personal information is totally different than in Serbia, for example, because we don't really, not care that much, but we don't think about it as much. We share our information, everywhere, and it's all over the internet. In Norway, they're very aware of what are the consequences if their information leaks, and etc. So our assumption was, people care. They would never give their information in Norway in one click, like share credit card information. And that was the assumption that if proven wrong, and we built our solution on that, we would, waste a lot of money and a lot of, energy, time, effort. No one would use that. So this was very risky assumption. So we created low fidelity prototype, like the mockup of first 2 or 3 pages of the app. And then we tested how the users would react to our, this button or that button, and we wanted to check if they would give their information, on the first page of the application. If that assumption was proven wrong, but if we were considering it like this is, starting point, let's build a solution around it, we would be like completely, we would be in a big problem. So that was the risky assumption for us, because it affected how we approach the project execution, like going to the left or right. So whatever you find to be risky for your project, it doesn't have to be only like from financial perspective. It can be from desirability perspective, from technology perspective, like viability, feasibility. So what I mean is this. So it will depend on the context, but whatever you find to be risky for your project success, test it before the execution. Sometimes it's going to be financials, sometimes desirability part, but yeah, at the end of the day, it's all is about financials if you think about it. So okay, very cool. So as I said, what the risky means for your project will be different from what risky is for my project, but it will be up to you to identify what can affect the project success. Is it worth it investing money, resources? If you're not sure, then do some testing. And as I said, low fidelity prototype doesn't have to be a working solution, just a mock-up, presentation of the idea, whatever will help you to test validate your idea and validate your assumptions. Was this a good answer?
Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
Cool.
Guys,
okay.
If there is anyone who would like to ask any questions to Jovana, because we are very close to the end, now is the opportunity to use it. So we have free extra 5 minutes for you if you attend to ask any question to Jovana.
Yeah, and you can always reach out in the group, LinkedIn, wherever you prefer. So
that's right.
Here to help. Okay. Okay. Thank you for joining on this gloomy, rainy day if you're based in Belgrade.
And windy, I would say.
Yes, total
And
mess.
windy. Here in Belgrade, there is rain and wind.
Oh, sorry, we weren't very active. It's us, not you. Cool.
Okay, guys, if that's all I want to say right now is thank you for your time. You were very patient with a lot of understands. And
yeah, thank you very much for that.
This was very, very full of knowledge. I already heard this story from Jovana, but I assume that you really enjoyed. I really do hope that you really enjoyed. So what should I say except have a great night. Thank you so much for your time one more time. Of course, you can add Jovana at her social networks. You see her name and her surname. You can connect
I have a
with
cool
her.
Instagram account.
Yes, she has. Yeah.
If
Yes,
you're
she
into
has.
climbing
Yeah.
and if you want to learn how, hey, my next meetup can be how to break your upper arm and survive the
And
recovery
survive.
with smile. Yeah, I had that
Yeah,
presentation for my colleagues.
I should say that Jovana went on a huge, very popular European marathon that was held in Madrid. I think Jovana 15 days ago or something like that. Yeah, 15 days ago. And I was shocked because I was in Italy. When I came back, I saw Jovana in Madrid only because of marathon. And I was like, really, girl, you did it. A lot of people want to go there just to drink coffee or to see Madrid, but going to Madrid for marathon, that's really choice. So yeah, she has cool Instagram account. You can add her. It's Rock and Lola. That's right. Okay, guys, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a great night and have a great weekend because tomorrow is Friday. See you next time. See you in June. We are going to have very interesting topic about Kanban. So thank you so much for your attention. And if you have any questions, please be free to write me an email or in the group. Jovana, thank you so much on behalf of Agile Humans. It was a pleasure to have you here. And I hope that we are going to have another session as soon as possible to continue this creative speech about design thinking. Thank you so much, guys,
Thank
and
you.
have a great week.
Bye.
Bye.